I just realized I don't think I ever came on to share my April or May reading wrap up. Did I? I have my handy dandy trusty notes and want to tell you about the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 books I read in April, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 books that I read in May. I'm going to do this as rapid fire as I can. I want to get caught up because I'm having a great reading month in June, and I want to highlight that as soon as I can in July. So without further ado, let's jump right into the books. Oh, wait. Let me tell you. I am Carly. I read and review historical fiction. If you're new here, be sure and subscribe if you enjoy reading historical fiction, particularly newer books. And as always, check out the description below where I've linked all the books that I'm talking about today. I'm going to start each month with my favorite book of the month. So flashing back to April, I'm going to have to share that, you know what? My favorite book of the month that month was Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I am a self-professed historical fiction fangirl. However, Emily Henry is the one contemporary fiction author that I will read whatever she writes. She is incredibly talented, and this book was no exception. It's getting a lot of hate from the kind of die-hard rom-com fans, and I totally understand why. This book was not a rom-com. It felt more like a kind of contemporary women's fiction. Think about Evelyn Hugo. There's a lot of kind of similarities there. If you enjoyed Evelyn Hugo or The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, then you definitely want to read this book. And yes, there is a lot of similarity, but they are two very different books. And what I loved the most about this book is that historical element. And I think Emily Henry nailed it. She flashes back brilliantly to a historical timeline that was just rife with kind of like just chaos and tension. And she does it in a way that is really unique. So this story is about a young heiress who in the 60s was kind of coming of age and fell into this relationship with this rock star. And she and this rock star were kind of front page news at the time. And it's really unique the way that Emily Henry tells this story, because each of the flashbacks that we're being told in this memoir style are told first from the point of view of their story, meaning the press or the, just society, and the truth. And I loved that about this book. I also loved the contemporary timeline and the really lovely relationship between the two characters, the two main characters, the two authors who are vying for the opportunity to write this memoir of this very famous woman who has kind of fallen off the face for the past several decades. I felt that the tension in this book was terrific. I love enemies to lovers. That is my favorite trope in terms of romance. So this one worked really, really well for me. Who Will Remember by C.S. Harris. Who knew that I would love a book that is the 20th book in the series and I've never read a single other one? I thoroughly enjoyed this murder mystery. So it's set in, I believe, like late 19th century London. It's dark, it's atmospheric, and it's got this kind of high society detective, and he is trying to suss out what happened to this other high society fella who was, and I know I'm kind of keeping it very vague, but I found it really compelling. There was kind of this like also dark, really sadistic element to this book that I think worked really, really well. And I'm eager to read more of the series to see if that is unique to this book. The Book Club for Troublesome Women by Marie Bostwick. Whew. This was a favorite of the month of April, and I really enjoyed this. This is set in a suburb of DC in the late 60s. It's told over the course of the year, and it's about this kind of ragtag group of women who are either neighbors or who somehow befriend each other and form this book club. And in this book club, they start with a very provocative book of the time, The Feminine Mystique, which is a nonfiction feminist kind of stalwart. This book really highlighted kind of what these women expected versus what they got in terms of marriage and life after marriage and motherhood and the desire for more beyond what they had. And that kind of tug and pull between, I should be happy with what I have, why do I want more, and I deserve more. And I thought that it was just a really terrific friendship story. The only thing that was missing for me, and it was kind of hinted at in this book, but I would have loved to see a little bit more diversity. Otherwise, this was a terrific book. I think if you enjoy good friendship stories and book club type books, this is definitely one you're going to want to read and maybe even own. 6 Days in Bombay by Alka Joshi. What can I say about this book other than this book was not for me? This was my first Alka Joshi, and I get the hype. The writing was stunning, but this book, I just could not swallow what I was being served. And what I mean by that is in this book, we have this character who's a nurse. She is taking care of this patient who she's never met before. They, because of the relationship between nurse and patient, they are in this close proximity for several days as this patient's, care progressed. And they develop, or they're supposed to have developed, this lasting bond. I mean, at some point they tell each other that they love each other. Ultimately, the patient dies and she leaves this young nurse her most prized possessions and asks her to take these prized possessions to their rightful owners or the people that she's left them to on this kind of global adventure. And as much as I love like fantasy and magical realism in my historical fiction, I just couldn't buy this. I could not buy these two people having known each other for all of 72 hours, that they're now these like best of friends, and I'm gonna go change my whole entire life because of this relationship that I've developed with this person. I couldn't get into it. I'm sorry. I know that a lot of people love her work, and I will definitely be reading more because it was very beautiful and lush and descriptive, and I felt very much on this journey with this character. I just couldn't buy the backstory, if that makes sense. The California Dreamers by Amy Mason Doan is another book that I really struggled with the backstory, and I wish I would have paid more attention to the synopsis when it says that this is based on a true story. This is actually based on a true story, and I think if I would have known that as I was reading this, it would have colored my experience a little bit more. I enjoy Amy Mason Doan's work. I think that she is a great up-and-coming writer. Is this super lush and descriptive? No, maybe not, but I think it's a terrific slice of life book. It is about this family in the 80s who are essentially living in their van and traveling up and down the West Coast, stopping in beach towns and surfing. They're surfers. And something happens in their life that really upends everything about their lifestyle. And we meet the characters later in life, and they're all pulled back together they're all pulled back together to celebrate the life of their father who's recently died. And, I wanted to love this, and I did enjoy it. I just didn't love it as much as I loved her other book, Lady Sunshine. It is very much a coming of age story. It does have enough of an adult theme to not be a YA novel, but it's borderline. So a lot of the book you're hearing from the perspective of this very young girl, and I think that gives it a little bit of a YA feel. And I struggle with YA books so much. I did enjoy the setting of this book. Obviously, I live in California. I love that kind of 80s vibe and everything that goes along with beach life and California living. It was captured well in this book. And I think if I would have known that this is based on a true story, I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. Broken Country. What more is there to say other than this book is everything? I loved it. It was a 5-star read. I just think that Great Big Beautiful Life just gave me something that I needed at that time, and bumped it up a little bit more in terms of favorites of the month of April, but this is a close second. Claire Leslie Hall nailed it. This book is so damn good, you guys. It is worth all the hype. If you take nothing away from this video, that this is what I want you to know. Broken Country is a must read for every reader. It's so good. This story is a unique story in terms of the way that it's told. So it starts with this kind of clash of violence, and then throughout the entire book, you're learning kind of what happened, and you're hearing all the different things that led up to that moment. And it's brilliantly structured. I absolutely loved the characters. The love triangle was superb. You really, at times, did not know. I mean, I felt very strongly that I want this woman to be with both of these men because she loved them, and both were so just right for her in different ways. And I loved this book. Cannot stop talking about it. Tough Luck by Sandra Dallas. Is this like life-changing fiction? Absolutely not. But it is a ton of fun. And if you love Westerns and you want something that's a little unique and different, by all means, please read this book. It's billed as an homage to True Grit, a film that I loved, a book that I haven't read. It is all about this young girl who takes her little brother out of an orphanage, runs away, and heads west to join her father after their mother dies. Along the way, they meet this just variety of different characters that are so much fun to get to know. They join a wagon train and have all these various kind of mishaps and adventures, and it's just a lot of fun. The revenge plotline was terrific. I gobbled this up. It does have a little bit of a YA feel because, again, the main character is I think she's around 14 years old, but there are some adult themes, including violence, in this book that just kind of give it that different flavor and elevate it beyond YA, if that makes sense. Speaking of YA, Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau, I think is how you say her name. This book was all the rage when it came out several years ago, and I bought a copy on Pango, and it's been on my shelf ever since, and my In Real Life book club and I decided to read this in April, and I really enjoyed it. However, it very much feels like YA to me. I don't know, again, I don't know if it is YA, if it was actually billed as YA or not, or marketed as YA or not. However, it definitely has that vibe because we, once again, have a very young female MC. And yes, there are some adult themes, but I think of all the books, this was the most YA. And it's a lot of fun. It had me laughing aloud a lot. It was very nostalgic. It read almost like a Ramona book, if you remember what those are like. And I very much enjoyed kind of that slice of life, that summertime feel that this book had. It transported me right back to, my tweens when I was, are these shorts short enough? Are they too short? What does this mean? What is happening in my body? What's happening in my family? I'm like waking up to the world around me, right? And this book does a great job capturing that. It's very nostalgic and a fun little nugget of a summer read. Lastly, I read a nonfiction in the month of April, and that's my first nonfiction book in a very, very, very long time. Dark City Dames by Eddie Muller. I listened to this book and I adored it, but I am also a huge fan of classic Hollywood, in particular film noir. And what this book is all about are the dames, the Dark City dames that made film noir what it is. These women who played femme fatales or played up to that homme fatale, their male main character. And it just featured a lot of the women that I absolutely love, and I could not get enough. and now I need a beautiful physical copy because I'm sure it's full of gorgeous photos from the various film sets and posters and things like that that I love. It talked about some of my all-time favorite films, including my all-time favorite film noir. And if you have not seen this, stop everything you're doing and go find a copy of Out of the Past starring Robert Mitchum. Love that movie so, so much. Now on to May. May, I read a lot more, and I feel like it was a little bit more of a mixed bag, and there were a couple of true standouts and there were a couple of disappointments. So let's talk about those. My favorite book of the month of May was a huge surprise to me, and that's because I did not enjoy the author's previous book the way that everyone else did. And I'm talking about Ameia Hart and her new book, The Sirens. I thought Wayward was okay. Everyone else loves it. For me, it was just okay. I thought all three of the timelines and stories were basically the same story, and there was not one single male character in that book with any redeeming qualities. And I struggled with that, because I have some really great guys in my life, and, I like to see a good guy too. Of course, there's lots of bad guys, but give us a good guy too. The Sirens did exactly that. It was so good, and I absolutely recommend this book for anyone who likes a kind of dark, atmospheric historical fantasy. There are multiple timelines. I don't want to tell you a whole lot about this book, but there is this lovely historical timeline about these two sisters who are sent from Ireland to Australia, and along the way, they discover that there's more to them than they previously believed. And I don't want to give a whole lot away, but they start to change physically, emotionally, mentally along the journey. Then there is this kind of modern day timeline about these other two sisters, and it is a wild ride. And the twist at the end, whew, I did not see it coming, but then again, I kind of was like, oh, okay, this makes sense now. I loved it. I thought it was a much, much better book, and I can't wait for everybody to read that book. The Rose and the Pomegranate by Leah Toole, who's an indie author that I connected with over on Book Talk, and I've been promising that I would read some of her books, and I asked her, which book should I start with? And this was her recommendation, and I enjoyed it so, so, so much. This is a reimagining, if you will, of Arthur and Henry Tudor. And it asks the question, what if Arthur had not died? When I talked about this book over on Book Talk, I encouraged people, if you loved The Spanish Princess, the series on Stars, you need to read this because it just flips the script on that beautiful period piece and gives you that what if element, and I enjoyed it so, so much. Highly recommend. If you love kind of English monarchy fiction, if you like reimaginings, and it's a great book for the June historical fiction prompts. Dustchild by Nguyen Phan K Mai was the June BBFL book club book, and oh my God, I love this book so much. It is a well, not really post. It's a good mix of Vietnam War era and post-Vietnam War kind of outcomes. And it really focuses on the lasting impact of war on the Vietnamese primarily. And it's just a really terrific read. If you're fascinated by the Vietnam War and that era, then this is definitely a must read for you. I loved all the Vietnamese cultural elements that the author included in this, kind of folklore and stories and rituals and just all those things that gave it this really rich experience, or made it a rich experience, I should say. The Midnight Estate by Kelly Rimmer. I'm not quite sure what's going on with this book because it originally had a publication date of summer of 2025. Now it has a summer 2026 publication date and the name is different. So I don't know if they're reworking it or what, but what I will say about this book is if the book that I read publishes, it's definitely a book that you probably want to explore if you enjoy Kelly Rimmer's work or if you like kind of dark fiction. it is a story within a story. It's all about a young man who helps this woman start her life over. Simultaneously, in a future timeline, we have a young woman who is starting over after a divorce. She inherits or she purchases the home in which she grew up, and it has some really kind of dark past. So it's all about the house, and the house kind of itself. It's not sentient, but it has a story. It's one of the characters of the story, I guess I should say. Meet Me in Monaco by Hazel Gaynor and Heather Webb. I love this duo, and I will probably read anything that they write. I wanted a backlist book and wanted something summary, and was doing some research for my summer reading guide and decided that I would dip the toe in the water in this book. And I'm so glad that I did. It transported me right over to Monaco, and I loved that about this book. It is a fictionalized account of two fictional characters who got to meet and got to know the very real woman, Grace Kelly. And I loved that they incorporated Grace Kelly and kind of her budding relationship with the Prince of Monaco and kind of how that came to be. And I love the way that they just incorporated these imaginary characters into that very real story. The Stolen Life of Colette Marceau by Kristen Harmel. Oh, I have such mixed feelings about this book. Overall, it was a great book. It was not a 5-star read by any means for me. And the main reason is because our main character, this octogenarian who has been a jewel thief her whole life, her backstory is she and her mother were direct descendants of Robin Hood, who stole from the rich to feed the poor. So they had to live out his legacy, and that's why she stole. And to me, that just seemed a little far-fetched. I couldn't buy that. However, the characters in this story are really great. The found family element in this story is really great. There's a little touch of romance, and it's just a powerful story. It's a powerful story about kind of that untold story of World War II. And yeah, I don't know. If you love Harmel, like if she can do no wrong for you, then you're going to love this book. However, she's the type of author that I'm always going to read her new work, and I'm working back through her backlist, but not one single book of hers has been a 5-star read for me. There's always just something off. And in this book, it was that backstory. I couldn't buy into it. However, it did send me on a kind of rabbit hole deep dive for books about Robin Hood, historical fiction about Robin Hood. And I found this new book while I was researching that I had to read. It's called The Trader of Sherwood Forest by Amy Kaufman. And I loved it so much. This is a very dark reimagining of the character of Robin Hood. You know, when we hear about Robin Hood, historically, we hear about this, you know, whether it's a real person or not, who can say, but he's always portrayed as this really great guy. And this book flips the script on that. And I gobbled it up. The English masterpiece, the Brand New Katherine Ray, I loved it. But I also love all of her work. And what I will say about this book is it was a propulsive mystery. And I loved that it took me on this kind of cat and mouse game, and really, I just felt invested in this female main character. It's all about this young woman who is apprenticing for the first female, I guess, curator, if you would, of the Tate Museum in London in the 70s. And on the day of the opening of their Picasso show that they threw together right after Picasso died, she discovers that one of the paintings hanging on the walls of the Tate is a forgery, and the story kind of takes off from there. It's all about this forgery ring and she gets caught up in the drama of figuring out who is behind all this. She's trying to clear her name because she's now suspected of being the forger. It was really, really good. And it's a fun, fast-paced mystery that I think a lot of people will really enjoy. My Name is Ameia Devay by Isabel Allende. Not for me. Oh. And I felt so bad because this was my first Allende and everyone loves her work, and I did not enjoy this at all. It was beautifully written and it was full of really rich history and culture, and I did enjoy that about this book, but it almost felt like nothing happened at all. And it reminded me a lot of my least favorite book of all time, The Signature of All Things by Elizabeth Gilbert. And I could talk all day about why I dislike that book, and I know some people love it, but it was not for me, and I will say that about this book. I felt very much like I wanted that time back, and I can't get it back, all that time that I spent reading this book. Sorry if this was a favorite of yours. I do plan to read more of her work because I know she's very beloved, and some of her work is magical realism, and I really love that. This was not, however, and it just felt like an adventure story that wasn't very adventurous. The Marthas Vineyard Beach and Book Club, the new Martha Hall Kelly. I love this book so much and highly recommend it. If you love Kate Quinn, you need to read this book. I have read The Lilac Girls and only that book in that series, and it was okay. It wasn't my favorite. It was very good, but this was so different. This was so good. It has a modern timeline, a historical timeline. It's obviously set in Martha's Vineyard. It's a fun kind of character study of these various characters and the way that World War II impacted the small town of Martha's Vineyard. And I felt like it was so fun, really, really fun. Last but not least is The Ghost Woods by C.J. Cook. If you are a fan of gothic, weird fiction set in like this eerie setting, you need to read this book. It reminded me a lot of Mexican Gothic. There's some kind of similar themes there. I don't want to give too much away, but it was very eerie and atmospheric, and I love that about this book. It's not my favorite C.J. Cook. If you want to know my favorite, that would be The Lighthouse Witches and The Book of Witching. I really love her witchy fiction. This was not witchy, but it was definitely more of a kind of a historical horror, and it had some creepy elements, and it was a lot about motherhood, and I enjoyed that. I did enjoy that. I recommend it, but it's not my favorite C.J. Cook, if that makes sense. That is what I read the months of April and May. Stay tuned for June reading wrap up. But until then, thanks for watching.